call the Wednesday, August 15th Board of Education special meeting to order at 6:31. Roll call.
Chairman Papa-Holter.
Here.
Vice Chair Nafrio.
Here.
Secretary Sienna.
Here.
Janet Balsamo.
Here.
Carolyn Candelora. Vincent Mace.
Here.
Cynthia Rice.
Here. Salute the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're here to discuss the presentation preparation for Town Council High School renovation construction project. So this week I sent out some talking points of what we should be discussing to, presenting to the town, and I just wanted to see if anyone had any discussion on it. Then we will talk about security, and some other issues like technology, the asbestos abatement, and the reimbursement rate that we think we should probably include. If we're asking the town to spend that much money, we should kind of have some idea what the reimbursement rate might look like.
Before we dive into this, just a couple of key points. The security recommendations only went to your email for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So anything that we discuss regarding security, we would not do on camera. We can speak in generic terms, but not specific terms.
Yeah.
We would go to executive session to do that. Okay, just so everyone's clear. Everything else that we're now could have went to all board members except for security.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So did everyone have a chance to read through all of the bullet points? Do you have any additional recommendations?
As far as like what else should be mentioned?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
What, if there was anything I missed, I mean, I sorted through all of the recommendations from the New England school
Schools and
audits.
colleges, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I went through 2000, 2010. Many of the citations have continued through. So I made sure I mentioned that. I kind of cross-referenced with Marie's presentation and some recommendations that have been on our checklists of things that we've needed to fix, as well as like projects we've done, like the roof and how it's impacted, has the boiler impacted us. So one of the things that I've been reading, so I was reading about 21st century education, which I know nothing about, so I'm very glad I got a few articles on that, and they were talking about climate in the school and airflow and lighting, and that should all go into a new design, and I think that's something that the board would be interested in. To hear how we would like work on with an architect on developing the school. I think it's also important that we let town council know that we would come up with multiple designs so that we would have an ideal, but also like plan Bs based on budget, so that it, we know what we're looking for, but we also know how to stay within a budget and where we would be able to flex and pull back and still get the same goal with being more efficient with dollars if necessary. This will be a school renovation pitch basically only. We are not going to include the fields in this. I don't think that would be prudent of us. If we want to get this project approved, we can look at fields at another time in a different way. So I wanted to talk a little bit, have Don talk a little bit about what he sent me, because you're probably better.
I just want to
versed at
mention
it.
that we do have Bill Choli here this evening, who is the Director of Facilities in the rear. Bob Piazek, who is my Supervisor for Security, is also here as well with our two administrators. So if there's any questions specific to the high school facility or in general things about security, they're here to answer questions as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Well, one of the things I was asked to look at was the reimbursement rate. The current reimbursement rate for us is 51.07%. Basically, the reimbursement rate is determined by the ANGLIC rating, which is the annual, adjusted rather, equalized net grand list per capita. And each town has one of those, and it goes from 1 all the way down to 169 or whatever the last one is. And so we come in at 88, so we're about the middle of the road. The lowest reimbursement rate is 20 for a reconstruction project, the highest is 80. So again, we're right around the middle of the road. And that's really pretty straightforward. I mean, there's not a lot of leeway there. The things that will impact us, and Bill had actually mentioned this at the last meeting, is there is also a per student formula. So depending on the square footage, and we are likely to suffer some penalty because of the fact that the auditorium was built as part of both the high school and middle school. So when state construction looks at us, they look at that as a complex, MBIS, auditorium, high school. So the bottom line is we won't get 51% of the entire project. There will be some losses. Those are a little bit hard to estimate. The other thing, there are always some ineligible costs in any project. And so also you don't get reimbursement for those.
Do you have an idea of like some items that are ineligible, just to give like a person an idea?
If there was a roofing project that was less than 30 years of age, it would be ineligible.
Yeah, that's going to be one. Bringing in like site services, like electrical and those kinds of things, those are all ineligible.
What about abatement?
I thought abatement was eligible, but yeah.
Abatement would be. So in Don's response, I bring up abatement because we sent back the square footage for what was left to do at the high school.
Yeah,
It's still
right.
significant.
It
So
is still significant.
I think that's going to impact our plan moving forward. Do we want to continue on with a aggressive plan, or do we want to back off, leave what we have, and then,
Let it
do
go
it
through.
when we do the project? So, but that's,
Well, that's why I
We'll
asked for
get
that.
to that.
That's exactly why I asked for that number.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend money.
right, we could get.
And we've
50% back.
we've taken the position more recently that if there is not a reason to do an abatement, as we're not just doing it to continue removing asbestos tile, we're doing it if either we have some suspicion that there's a potential problem, because we certainly don't want to have that crop up in the middle of the year, because then you shut the building down until it's finished. Or if there was some, like for example, when we redid a couple of the science labs, we abated them. When we redid some work, we did a lot of work in the library, we abated it. So I mean, there may still be some targeted abatements that we want to do if we need to do something in a classroom.
If there's like a health and safety risk.
Right.
So they're hot spots, if it's broken tile or
Right.
areas that, there's a designated amount that we can do in-house that we do not have to farm out. So if it's easy ones to do, the biggest, it's really not a problem, but at the high school, many years ago, the tiles that were replaced, they're 12 by 12, they're not asbestos tiles, it's the mastic underneath. So we're walking on top of non-asbestos tile, but underneath the mastic is, so all of that has to be ground and removed, including those tiles. So the floors are in good shape, they can last. The old tiles are in better shape than the new. They're durable, they've held up better. So we don't really have a lot of hot spots right now. You could get a lot of life still out of those floors. Just so you're aware of that. It's not like they're popping up everywhere and we have problems.
Right, so we have the luxury of waiting until we renovate the school if need be.
Yes.
For the most part, we should.
Okay. Can you just tell me the difference? I see two different percentages. New school construction would be a completely new building, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's a lower percentage
Yeah.
unless you can demonstrate that the cost of a new school is less than that to renovate the existing school.
I was just wondering.
Then you can get the higher level, but otherwise you lose about 10% on the,
Yeah, that's what it looks like, almost
Yeah.
exactly.
So if you want, and I'm just going to throw things so everyone is aware, if you look at like MBIS that we've been in for the last 6 years, 5 to 6 years, that was a renovate, but there was additional space added to it. It was partially renovated, and we had new space added to it. And Don, we were into that for about 30,
it's 36, 38.
36, mid-30s million for the cost of that project 6 years ago. What's the square footage of NBIS?
121,000.
So if you do the per square foot price for 121,000 at $36 million, the high school with the diamond is how many?
120.
120. So you're looking apples to apples.
Okay.
6 years later, that if you were going to, now keep in mind, you're going on your existing footprint and staying within your space with an enrollment that probably has plateaued. We're not going to see a big spike up. I don't think we're going to see a big spike down in the next 10 years. I think we're going to be pretty consistent. So that being said, you get into questions like, okay, if we don't put something in the middle of the diamond, like we talked about the media center, you're going to save a whole lot of money. If you go into and look at, okay, let's look spatially at what we have for the programs that we have and what we want to improve upon, now you're redesignating your 121,000 square feet with fewer students that were there 30 years ago. So those are the decisions you're going to have to make when you go forward to the council with a number. So if you look at a number of $40 million versus you go as high as, however you want to see this,
I think
where
in
are you
this
gonna-
presentation, it's difficult to give an exact.
That's what I was just gonna
No,
say.
an
I'm saying-
architect who can give us a drawing
But-
and we can say,
right,
no too high, yes, this is a priority, and we rank what's really important before
Right.
we get a dollar
Yeah,
amount. I
but-
mean, my assumption, and Marie can tell me if I'm wrong, this is to move forward with getting a plan in place, not saying, okay, you have $50 million, go have at it.
yeah, we got to start.
Right.
We gotta start.
You can now go do your homework and bring back your research to us, and we will guide.
Right, I mean, we don't want you to go through all of this.
Right.
And then say, well, no, we're not gonna do anything, because it's a lot of work on your
Right.
effort. So
Yeah.
before you do all of that, you need to know that there's a consensus that,
Right.
yes, we do wanna move this forward.
Right.
Right.
But there have to be options.
Right.
That's exactly.
Oh,
so-
absolutely.
I was hoping that we can give our ideal, and as the architect is building or crafting the plan, there's different options, so that there's different tiers for us to all look at. And so the administrators, the board, can kind of prioritize, and then we bring it to town council with kind of a number and options, and you say, hey, yeah, this will work for us, this is what we can do. Because you have the mill rate, you have the residents, you have a lot of other people other than us to kind of, you have the bigger picture, I guess, is what I'm saying.
And the community has to come out and
Yeah.
support.
Mr. Stefan, Mr. Gordon, see this? So, okay, so what is next on the list?
Well, the last thing you had asked me about was the HVAC system. And the HVAC system is kind of it's an interesting, it's a mix of brand-new boilers with very old, for the most part, very old unit ventilators. Some of the unit ventilators have been replaced. Some of the unit ventilators are combination heat and air conditioning. Some are just heat. The ventilation system itself, the units on the roof were redone so the main airflow ventilators were replaced when we redid the roof, but the classroom ventilation, air exchange, primarily comes through those individual unit ventilators, the boxes that are by the windows. So the control system is antiquated. We actually did try to, Bill worked with a local contractor to try to do some work to improve the control system. But one of the things we found is there were so many different things you had to try to control with those old unit ventilators that we really weren't very effective. I think, what do we do, 3 rooms, and basically we got the feedback that it hadn't made much difference. So that's why we stopped moving forward with that project. We're still going to need to do something with the gyms because they're still being run by the steam boiler, which has to keep running because of that. So, I mean, I
So is
think,
it fair to say that we are going to need an overhaul of this system in order?
oh, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah,
That's-
without question.
So the cooling piece to that, obviously opposite of what Don is talking about, at Jerome Harrisonville, can you speak to the chiller unit, the ground level chiller unit, if that might be something that's more feasible to do and more cost effective if we were to air condition the entire school?
It's more manageable, it's probably more reliable, because your ventilators that are in your classroom are being powered by another source. The way it's set up now, the unit ventilator is a standalone cooling unit and heating unit. So if that goes down, if any part of that system breaks, you lose the whole system. With a chiller unit, you're using cold water. So it's just, it was used because it was a more efficient and cost-effective system. If you look at many of your larger buildings, you're going to see cooling towers. You're not going to see standalone, like at NBIS, you have 16 separate air conditioning and heating units up on the roof. At any one given time, one of those 16 units could be down. Chances of, because a cooling tower is a very simple unit, it cools the water and it moves the water through the building. It's just more efficient and it's a little bit cheaper to deal with. But it also depends on the layout of the building. Jerome Harrison was designed around a chiller.
So this is gonna sound ridiculous, I really don't know anything about construction, so just bear with me. Is that type of unit energy efficient? Because I think as we move to building a school, we should look at energy efficiency, so I wouldn't know that. Like, does it have the little star on it, like when you go to Home Depot? You know what I mean? Like you look at, that's the best way I can equate it, you know, the Energy Star?
Yes, it is an Energy Star type of a unit when it is designed. And when the architect for the heating and cooling engineer firm looks at it, they're looking at a high efficiency unit. Okay, that's the way each building right now is basically designed to be an Energy Star building. They don't build an inefficient building anymore. The state won't let you do it. You have to build it with efficient components. And that's just the way it is.
Okay, that's interesting.
We were before the council, I don't remember when, or even the exact reason why. It had something to do with the intermediate school. I think it was the leaks on the roof or something like that. I would highly suggest that we have, in this planning process, have Bill Chody very active, as well as John Florio. You know, they're the ones that take care of all this, and why were we in front of you guys? Was it the leaks?
Yeah, it's the whole issue with the intermediate school, and the one thing that we've learned in the last 2 years that we are trying to fix all of those issues is that system, in theory, it's supposed to be very energy efficient, but it is way overbuilt.
Right.
For the school.
It's very complex.
Right, and it's way too complicated. Even though it's, you know, with the computer system, and it's supposed to have all these bells and whistles and everything else, it is just overbuilt. And it is actually, as we found out in our budget season this year, is the high school, energy-wise, is more efficient than the middle school.
With the new,
Oh, yeah.
the new heating system.
The middle school was our least efficient building when we
Yes,
did that study a
exactly.
couple of years ago.
And so we just need to be very cognizant of that fact.
Right, and John Florio can be invaluable to us, as well as Bill Chody, with input on these.
Because the architects and the builder and the construction, they will try and sell you these
Right.
things.
Right, exactly.
But it's, you know,
They're
And
not-
NBS
it
is
certainly didn't work for us
Oh,
at
I'm sorry.
NBIS.
Those units were outdated by the time they got on the roof.
Right,
So now you have certain points in the building based upon where the sun rises and sets, that it gets different reads and then it feeds the computer. So some classrooms are getting heat, some are getting cold air, some are getting, so it's a nightmare. But again,
Live and learn.
Right, and that's why I'm hoping that John Florio and Bill Chody will be a very big part of this process, because they know the buildings better than anybody.
And I guess you've learned what we've done right and what we've done wrong.
But we're paying for it.
Literally. Literally, okay. All right. And the other thing I want to just, you keep saying things around the roof. Should we be putting things on the roof?
no.
No.
So the other piece I will add that, prior to Bill coming to us, Bill, you were in Wallingford, how many schools did you renovate?
I did 13 schools for the town of Wallingford.
So we have a long history, and you look at just in the last several years here with, we did the roof here next year, pitched tin, and we haven't had water problems. Now, we're not going to pitch the roof at the high school, we know that, but we shouldn't add anything to the roof. We should stay off the roof. If we're going to air condition the building, which we should be thinking that's what we're going to do,
Yeah.
we should go on the ground, and if we can replicate something that Jerome has done with the chiller system and it's effective and efficient, stay off the roof.
I just want to talk briefly and more in generalities about security, because I don't think we can talk in detail any of it. Just from what I've been given.
So, I met with Bob, Mr. Piasek, and I also consulted with Trooper Agan, who oversees the town and the school district, and we kind of put our heads together with big picture generic things and things that we've talked about as a district. If we were to look at moving our entrance point to the front side and addressing the flow of traffic and having a central point there where everyone comes and goes, and that we have a very good understanding with an entry system in a vestibule situation where you don't get into the building until you go through 2 sets of doors. And you don't get through that first set of doors until you identify and you go through a process. And if you do get in and you're not supposed to be in, you're not getting through the second set. So that was a very strong point from both gentlemen, entry point, accessibility, the types of things that we currently have in the building with increased technology and our ability to monitor and see. We talked about athletic fields, we talked about the greenhouse, we talked about other parts without going into detail that we can do a better job of adding additional technology. And then looking at individual classrooms, the ability to now secure classroom doors with mechanisms from the inside, secure parts of the building, but not get to a point where we're obstructing the fire company, the police department, should they need to get into the building. So a lot of those conversations were around that.
You spoke a little bit too about the posts kind of in front of the school to slow down traffic and vehicles.
Yeah, it's not a secret anywhere that a lot of things that are happening now around the world, around the country, are vehicles are being used as weapons. So, and it's done intentionally, but sometimes it's not intentional. So right now, we're doing the job at Jerome Harrison, and we're talking about, we've just repaved, but now there's the ability for traffic to come up and get on a sidewalk, so we're going to put barriers there until we get large objects there to stop cars. So anything that we put up, our entry points, ways that you could get into a building with a vehicle, will block. And that was something that, again, is,
You'll see it, it's easy,
Yeah.
it's kind of a no. So
Yeah.
we'll talk a little bit about the security when we give the presentation more in generalities. You can see from the structure of the building and the current windows and all of that, that'll be easy to speak to, both from a climate control perspective, an aging perspective, and a security perspective. I know that there was an architect that did a design when the middle school was built, but I don't think that design is currently relevant with today's standards and just kind of climate with security. So we won't reference that much. I did look into kind of the innards of it when they were saying what was out of date when they initially looked at it, like the locker rooms and just classroom sizes. I looked at that piece of it, but I didn't stick to the exterior really, because so much has changed now. So that would just kind of be a new focus for a new company. or
They were
individual.
also looking at expansion
Yeah,
in some areas, and again, that's likely to be expensive, because it's likely to put us over the square foot guidelines.
right, and we want to stay well within that, especially with a dropping student.
Well, it's with the
population,
auditorium.
so, yeah,
So I think honestly, I think we're handcuffed with any new space. I think we're gonna have to work within what we have and reconfigure what we have. And we can do that.
I do, I think we could do that and do it well.
It's easier to take a wall down than add and lose your reimbursement rate.
So, does anyone else have any questions or have any points that I've missed? Because what I'd like to do is, I'll take what I've sent out, add the information, send it to the administrators. Mr. Chody, I'll get your email too, I don't have it. You're giving me all the information on the security, so I'll send it to you too. Yeah, so that we could all be on the same page, and if I'm missing anything and you're typing it out and you're reading it at home, you can just kind of shoot me an email and say, hey, you might want to think about this. Thank you. Do you have the security ones too? She's giving me email so that I could just shoot it. Now I have the high school email since my son was going there, so that's really easy. I'll apply to an e-blast. So I want you to look at it because I'm going to start working on how I'm going to format it and present it so that I don't stumble over myself on the 18th.
Sean, are we still, is it still a consideration to look into moving central office to the high school, or are we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. And it's something I will bring up. It's going to be more for if we can fit the space with an architect after we talk to an architect. Honestly, it's going to come down to, I think, dollars and cents and how we prioritize once we get those drawings. And I really want town council to be involved, so we're not working in a vacuum like against them. I want it to be more of a collaborative project since it's really a town project. It's not just a school project. It touches everybody in one way or another, so I want it to be positioned that way.
I just want to be, I just want to, like when you say moving central office, we really have to weigh it out. I mean, if it's only a little bit more money, it's sometimes better to just do it than regret doing it down the road and then trying to, if that's something that's a priority. Sometimes, maybe.
Well, we would put all of the priorities on an agenda and vote them. So it would be, and I know I get in trouble for saying this every time, but it would be a majority decision. So we would kind of rank it, and then whatever kind of hits the top ranks goes, and we'd listen to the administration and see what's a priority for them as well, so they can tell us like, hey, this isn't really important because we could kind of make that work here, but this is what we really need.
Right, it's a school renovation project.
Right.
So it's going to focus, obviously, everything that we put our energy into first will be getting that high school to 21st century,
Yeah.
learning and teaching.
Exactly.
And then once you have your menu, we trickle down
We
to.
trickle down to see.
What are we going to do essential, if anything?
Right, and if there's huge cost savings, and I don't know what the town's feeling on that is either.
Right.
They might have strong feelings one way or another, and I'd like to hear
Right.
what they have to say as well, so that, I think would be good relationship building for the two bodies.
The police may want to come in here.
The police might want to come in here.
Take this building. Next to the senior center and the
Yeah, right?
park and rec.
Oh, gosh. Is there anything else?
I have a question. What's the square footage of the high school thing?
Can you just?
120,000.
The high school?
Yeah.
They were comparable. They were
121 is
It's about the same size as the intermediate.
It's about the same size, okay.
Yeah, so you're saying it was apples to apples, and the high school was 32
Same size as the
million?
new intermediate.
The what, the middle school?
Middle school.
Not the old one.
35, 36.
35 or 36 when it was.
But that
renovated.
was
Total.
added space, and that was a new building attached to this old sixth grade wing, which
Yeah.
was a renovation. The gym was a renovation, but the majority of that building was new construction.
Was that with the reimbursement rate, or was that total?
No, that was
total.
total 36.
Total.
So we probably got 18 back on it.
Oh, wow, that's.
I mean, we have the.
I shouldn't say that's not bad, I mean,
The-
it's $18 million,
You know, One thing that actually might be informative on that we do have, the final audit's been done, so I can get from Anthony what the total was, what the reimbursement was, what the ineligible costs were.
That'd be great. I think that's important information to have as we're looking through projects.
And we were under budget
options.
on that.
We were on
We were under
Yeah.
budget, so all of that information is now readily available.
Yeah, I think that would be great so we know how to steer ourselves.
Right. But it helps, just when you start looking at numbers.
Yeah, well, that's
Space to
why I had
space.
reached out to East Hampton, because I was like, they're very comparable to us, and they were like 50-something, and that's without the reimbursement rate, so that's still not too bad considering this number's like, the school's been done 5 or 6 years, so it's probably like an 8-year-old number,
Yeah.
right?
I have another question. If you ever did consider a new school, Oscar, where would you put it?
That's not a question for me, it's for the town council. I mean, we're doing a renovation project and that's what we were asked to do, not a new school project.
I think it would almost be impossible because, I'm sorry. Because the auditorium.
Right.
Yeah. And
I
in
mean,
the room,
we
you're
built that
right.
auditorium to connect. I mean, if you had to build something new, I mean, you would have to redo the whole auditorium idea.
Yeah,
It just,
But you're
it
2
seems
million
it's
into the roof.
impossible.
We're 2
Right,
million
we're
into
two,
the
yeah.
roof.
Which
I'm
is,
just looking at
Yeah.
cost because if you're looking at doing a renovation, sometimes the renovation is almost as costly as doing something new.
right.
Because you have to take out a lot of work, a lot of your labor is intensive when you have to start removing stuff and breaking down stuff and then rebuilding it.
no, and I
As
agree.
opposed to just knocking
Exactly.
something down and then going from new and doing it all over
We didn't
again.
have the roof maybe.
So I hate to be, a penny wise and a dollar foolish, and that's why I was asking, what would happen if you looked at both costs, as I'm looking at figures here, and if the reimbursement rate from the state is, somewhat generous to us.
They already reimbursed us for the
But
roof. We
Don,
got
did you say
reimbursement for the roof for
reimbursement
that.
for new build would be less?
It's
It's lower.
10% lower.
It's 10% lower unless you can demonstrate that it's cost effective, basically.
Right, unless it's cooler.
the infrastructure of the high school, it's similar to the high school that I renovated many years ago. It's brick and mortar and it's really solid. So you're in a building that is going to stand time. I think when we talk about renovating, we're talking about what we've been talking about. All new windows, all new floors, all new paint, all new ceilings, air conditioning, better lighting, better technology, knocking a wall out to get a bigger space to do a computer lab, so that when you walk in there, you're looking from the exterior like, that looks like a new building, and then on the inside, it's the same thing. And you have that ability because it is like this is not going anywhere.
Right.
Well, the renovate is new, you basically go down to the studs.
Yeah, on the inches.
That's what happened at NBIS.
Right.
I just have a question. So if it happens that central office moves to the high school, that all fits into the equation, does preschool still stay here? Is
Well,
that
we have to
your
look at,
intention?
as a school with an 092 person in the building and what the requirements would be to do that. That's kind of a second conversation to have with what we would need to have to run the school here. We always could move the program if we thought it was, we are full day pre, we're full day K now. Do we look at the potential of moving FRC out of here? Or does FRC dissolve in years with this project? If we exceed.
Well, because part of that goes back to the original, when this school was donated to the town.
Right.
From Stanley Williams, and what the deed and what the requirements are.
What was it, Rose? What's the mission?
I'm not sure, that's what I'm saying, is there could be things in there that this building has to remain a school or used for school purposes. So that is something we would have to look at.
If you dissolve your FRC, you're looking at affecting your 3-year-olds. With a pre-K right now and the ability to grow the pre-K or the full day pre-K, we have the full day K now, you're really impacting your 3-year-olds. So as a board, you have to decide, okay, let's do a cost analysis of running our FRC and staffing and everything else for a 3-year-old population. Or do we want to turn our attention and look at a different model and then bring something back that we did have at the high school with the early childhood development and have that part of your program. So, you know, there are some stipulations, but if you don't have the program, you've got your senior center here, you've got Park and Rec here, it's really not a school per se.
Is there a way for us to get what the stipulations are in that deed? Where is that information?
And you might have to check with Lisa Valenti,
Yeah.
the town clerk, and she could probably look it up. It has to be in the archives someplace, it has to be.
Somewhere, okay. I'm going down there tomorrow morning anyway, so I'll
If you dissolve your program,
Oh, so you're gonna
you
ask
don't
her?
have it then.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll ask her, I'm going down there tomorrow.
Yeah, so, I mean, and I know that's just one of the issues, I mean, because that has been talked about before, and that has come up, and I don't know that it's ever been answered.
Okay. It's gotta be somewhere.
Right. And if it's not written someplace, then I guess it would be to our benefit, if there's not a stipulation someplace on the deed.
No, because the only reason it would still be a school is if that program is running. It's not a mandated required program. So if it's not here, then it's not a school.
Right.
So-
Okay, we'll check that out. Anything else?
Okay, motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye.